Welcome to the True You Summit. I'm Carrie Rubin, your summit host and Chief Mom Officer at the Modern Mom Society. I'm excited to bring you this summit to help you get the tools you need to live an authentic and joyful mom life that's aligned to what your body, soul, and mind desires. I hope you enjoyed this limited time free interview with one of the 15 experts that are here to discuss how you can get closer to your true you. Each day of the summit, we will explore 5 different areas of your life where you can improve your connection to your true you as a busy mom. Parenting, mom life, authenticity, spirituality, and mind and body. You'll have 24 hours free access to listen to the 3 experts discussing the topic of the day. Otherwise, you can purchase lifetime access to these life-changing series of interviews. There are 2 different packages available. The basic package, which includes all 15 interviews in MP3 format, can be purchased for $29, or the deluxe package, which includes all 15 interviews in audio, video, and transcript format, so you can get this great information whichever way you prefer. Plus, the deluxe package also includes bonus PDFs. One is the How to Connect to Your True You guide. It highlights the ways that the experts shared in their interview as to how they personally connect to their true selves, as well as the common ideas and themes throughout. So if you're new to connecting to your true you, or you're out of practice, you can start trying on these different ways of getting in tune with your inner wisdom, intuition, and true self right away. The second bonus PDF is Key Takeaways from the Summit. As I was recording all of these interviews, I noticed common themes and threads throughout. And this bonus document highlights these keys, so you'll be sure to get the most important ideas and begin to make shifts towards a happier, joyful, more aligned, and more fulfilled mom life today. The $29 and $59 prices for the basic and deluxe packages are good now through the end of the summit on May 10th. After that, the prices will go up to $59 and $89 respectively. So if you think you're going to miss any of these great interviews, or you'll know you want to have lifetime access to them, be sure to grab your True You Summit package upgrade today. Here's today's interview. I hope you enjoy it. Hi, and welcome to the True You Summit presented by the Modern Mom Society. I'm Carrie Rubin, your summit host and Chief Mom Officer at the Modern Mom Society. I'm excited to bring you this summit to help you get the tools you need to live an authentic and joyful mom life that is aligned to what your body, soul, and mind desires. Today's expert is Lola Wright. Lola is the CEO and spiritual director of Bodhi Chicago, a global center for consciousness that engages change agents and explorers locally and around the world. I was introduced to Bodhi Spiritual Center by Anne-Marie Tresso, who I interviewed for my last summit called Surviving Early Childhood, and also had her on an episode of the Modern Mom Society podcast. So once I went to my first service at Bodhi, I knew I had found my spiritual home. Lola is a spiritual director. She's a captivating speaker and an inspiration for conscious change on the planet. Through getting to know her at Sunday services, as well as taking a class called Spiritual Foundations through Bodhi, I knew I had to include her in on this summit. She's very versed in all things spiritual and knows quite a few tools for helping others make big shifts in their life. I had a hard time choosing what to have her talk about, frankly, but I landed on the topic of divine discontent because I know there are so many moms who are struggling with not loving their current situation and don't know what to do about it. My hope for you is that through listening to this interview, you will come to understand that discontent is there for a reason and that you are meant for more joy, more happiness, more expansiveness. You deserve all of it. We dig into the tools for helping you figure out how to shift discontent in your life and get you on the path to more abundance. Are you ready? Here it is. Welcome to the True You Summit, Lola. I am so thrilled that you said yes and are going to be a part of the summit.
Me too. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I had a hard time choosing a topic for you to talk about because you're like all things spiritual, which I love. But today we're going to be talking about discontent. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about discontent and isn't it just part of life? And isn't it unrealistic to think we can have everything we want?
Yeah, I mean, I actually think, there's sort of a distinction that I draw between dissatisfaction and discontent. And you could say like, oh, that's just semantics, but it's a helpful distinction for me because I think there's sort of the innate evolutionary impulse that lives in all human beings. It's that thing that moves us forward, that has us grow, that has us evolve, that has us demonstrate curiosity and wonder. And I think that kind of discontent is sort of the nature of this existence. And so to welcome that, to trust that, to listen to that, to allow it to inform you. And that's distinct from dissatisfaction, which is a just sort of perpetual mood. You know, it's like a disposition about life itself where, you know, I mean, like simply stated, my dad would always say, I mean, he was an entrepreneur. So I think he learned pretty quickly that his mindset really informed the success of his business. And so growing up, it was always like, well, is the glass half full or is the glass half empty? You know? And so I think it's like, we always have the opportunity to choose the, you know, lens through which we perceive something.
So how do you tease apart what is more divine discontent, for lack of a better term, versus just egocentric, like, ugh, you know, oh, I wish this was different?
For me, I like to pay attention to its longevity and its persistence. So, and then I just think like some of it is really just getting to know your interior and listening. And the more you listen, the better ability one has to discern one from the other. I was just thinking about something this morning. I was laying in bed and it was like just sort of this gnawing that felt very familiar. And I don't remember like the content of it, but I just remember having the thought, like, pay attention to this, because this is one that hasn't just been like a fly-by-night discontent. It hasn't just been like a mood-based response. It actually could be really great information if you choose to listen. So I think that's part of it, is like, just does it keep showing up? And when you try it on and when you listen to it, is there some wisdom in it? Like, hey, pay attention to me. There's something calling you forward.
Can you share an example of a more divine discontent that you had in your life that you shifted?
Yeah, you know, it's so funny because I spent years in banking and real estate, and I, you know, I've worked at a number of, you know, global institutions. And for a number of years, I think primarily when I was at Bank of America, I just had this sort of gnawing feeling like everyone else has found their purpose. Like they have figured out who they're here to be and what they're here to do and what they're to contribute. And, you know, I just felt very uninspired by the notion that this was ultimately what I was here to be and do, which, by the way, doesn't mean that banking isn't someone's, you know, true contribution. It's not about banking, you know, it's just, I knew that it wasn't what I was here to do and be. And I looked at my husband, who's a landscape architect, and he had really gotten clear that landscape design, landscape architecture was really like a way that he could contribute art on the planet. My brother was, you know, a personal trainer and massage therapist, but more than those titles, he really saw his work as a healing modality that he was uniquely skilled to contribute. You know, my mom was a fundraiser for the largest nonprofit hospice in the country. And, you know, she sort of stumbled upon that when her best friend died in hospice care of cancer. So it was like, I had all these mental models of people that were really living what to me felt like a purposeful life. And here I was like selling widgets for a living at Bank of America.
Yes, this totally resonates with me, yeah.
But I also knew like I wasn't in a position to leave the bank. Like I couldn't just, my life was constructed around the salary that I made there. So multiple things were happening at the same time, right? It's like, okay, so I'm aware that I'm at this place. It doesn't feel like it's highly aligned with who I'm here to be on a variety of levels. I am developing really great skills in being here. And I want to know that the thing that I devote a lion's share of my time to is in service of something greater.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just, for several years, just sat in the agitation of that. There's one of my very favorite books is called Spiritual Economics by Eric Butterworth.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about what he calls pearling, sort of the process by which a pearl is formed. And it lives in this great state of agitation. And the agitation is required for the beauty of the pearl to come forward. So in his book, he says something to the effect of, so get to pearling, and it's like, it's sort of cheesy, but it's like, it makes sense. And so I feel like I lived a lot of my corporate life in this state of pearling. Mm-hmm. And then when I found myself in the position that ultimately ended up being me as CEO and spiritual director of this place called Bodhi Chicago, all of a sudden, all of the previous professional experience made perfect sense. Like I was being prepared and developed by the universe, or whatever you want to call it, to have the necessary skills to deal with what I was going to deal with within this organization. I mean, down to like within, I moved into my current role after a couple of iterations prior to that. And within like a couple months, we were served with a 5-day notice to, move out of our 25,000 square foot facility. And we were being offered like a ridiculously low settlement to move. And had I not had like 15, 18 years in banking and real estate, I would not have been nearly as equipped to deal with that situation and then negotiate multiples of that settlement. Mm-hmm. I think for me, it's like trusting that even when I am in an uncomfortable position, that all of this must be in service of something, even when I don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Your story is very similar to mine, and I'm still in the pearling stage, if you will. Mm-hmm. I had a lot of resistance around my current full-time job, and like, I know this is not me, this is not my purpose. I don't like selling widgets, and just like a lot of resistance to that. And I finally got to a stage of gratitude for what it's offering me right now, which is a nice salary, benefits. I have a lot of flexibility, and I'm able to do things like this, fold it into the mix and make it happen. So once I shifted to that state of gratitude, the amount of dissatisfaction just lifted. And
yes.
I'm being patient can be challenging. But I see, things just have been unfolding for me with the work that I've been doing on the side. And it may just continue to be on the side. It may turn into something bigger, but just continuing to follow those nudges.
Well, and I think what's beautiful about that is this notion of, it's can come off as sort of glib, but what you focus on expands. And so it's like, here you have not allowed the job that you find, less inspiring, so to speak,
right,
to prevent you or hold you back from investing in something that really brings you life. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's neurology at this point. I mean, this is like not just some woo-woo. I mean, we in this dimension of reality, we love to have things validated by science, which is lovely, wonderful, great. Yes. And what science is telling us, like, if you focus on your survival and the lack of something, that will perpetuate itself. If you focus on a higher state of consciousness, so literally moving from the reptilian brain into higher states of consciousness, more becomes available, more becomes possible. Mm-hmm. And that is, just expanding your creative capacity. So, I mean, I think what you're doing is such a beautiful demonstration of that.
Mm-hmm. So how would you coach somebody through if they're just dissatisfied? Because I know in Sunday services, a lot of times when you're offering the free sessions, you say, if there's something in your life that's not like how you would want it to be, come see us. So can you talk through a little bit about what that process looks like and how you help people shift?
Yeah. So I really, in many great ancient traditions, there's some iteration of what's called the triune nature or the threefold nature. I mean, you can look at all the world traditions. In the Christian tradition, it might be called the Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And really what that speaks to is the invisible realm, the subconscious mind, and then the world of form, the material realm. And we're creating through sort of a filtration process. So, my experience is that if you can get clear on what your realm of beliefs are, that is essentially the filtration system through which you are creating. And when someone is experiencing dis-ease or dissatisfaction in their world, it's really useful to look at what I call like the cosmology of thought or the cosmology of belief. If you think about if you look up in the sky and you see you see the solar system, you see the cosmology of stars, mm-hmm. and you think about your mind, your subconscious mind, it has all these little points that are like a network that are working together to produce the life experience that you're living in. And so the work of sitting down with someone and really untangling what is the system of thought, what is the system of beliefs that has yielded the life that I now have. I think one of the sort of misconceptions is that I need to change the exterior to create the feeling I desire. Mm. And I would actually encourage us to consider the opposite is true. Mm-hmm. Imagine that when you start to align your inner world, your mind, your spirit, like whatever you want to call it, mm-hmm. with the values that you long for, that you desire, then the outside world can begin to shift. But so long as we're sort of chasing the carrot, thinking that the locus of control is outside of us, we will be forever on the hamster wheel of life and eternally dissatisfied. Mm-hmm. So for me, like a lot of the work that I do with people is, let's take a deep breath, mm-hmm. which just as a sidebar, I think most of us are not breathing. Mm-hmm. We're just sort of like barely breathing, mm-hmm. which perpetuates a physiological experience of survival on a chronic basis. So let's just start by having a, practice of oxygenating the body. And then let's start to get curious, like what is the realm of belief and of thought that I'm steeped in? And where does it come from? What are its origins? And I don't mean that in terms of some kind of psychoanalysis. Like we could all spend decades on a couch exploring existentially why and how we got to be where we are. Mm-hmm. And, maybe that's useful. I think it can, I think there are actually much more efficient ways to untangle things that are less costly and swifter. Mm-hmm. But as we sort of begin to identify, I am creating through a filtration system that has a fundamental underlying belief in scarcity, no surprise that I keep demonstrating or experiencing not enough money, not enough time. And for me, some of that work is like little mental hacks. I really have a discipline around not saying I am busy. Mm-hmm. That's just like real simple word choices, because it creates a new neural pathway in the brain. Mm-hmm. So I am not busy. I live a very full life. And the life that I lead is by my design. I'm the one that says yes to what I say yes to. I say no to what I say no to. Mm-hmm. And I am at choice. And I guess I think I want to also just say, for a little bit of context, because I think sometimes these conversations can occur for people as sort of privileged inquiries. Yes. Oh, how fortunate, Lola, that you can sit and sort of contemplate the nature of the universe and, explore your subconscious mind. And I want to just sort of share that the life that I live today, which does have many luxuries and many niceties, was not always that way. I mean, mm-hmm. I became a mom at 18. I experienced many years of welfare. I experienced very significant domestic abuse and a relationship that was riddled with addiction. And it was because of what I consider the liberation of a philosophy such as this that I was able to move beyond those circumstances and conditions. So I just want to say, like, no matter what you are navigating right now, the most beautiful thing is that there is an aspect to your being that only you can access. And when you start to align yourself with that place and space, you can begin to expand your experience of reality. And, you know, I don't identify as a religious person. I don't identify as, you know, with any religious affiliation.
Mm-hmm.
I am a student, though, of ancient wisdom. And one of the things I've been talking a lot about is the period in time in which this guy, Jesus of Nazareth, was walking on the planet, you know? And one of the things that's really, the context I think a lot of times we're missing is the period in which he was living in an occupied society. There was a regime that had come in and occupied the land in which he was living. And the people of his environment were feeling the oppression of an occupying force. And at that time, you know, 600 laws had come down that were basically means by which to trap the local people and, you know, maintain occupancy by the Roman Empire. And as a result of that, his teachings came forward because he knew, like, okay, if I work with the people here in this dimension of reality, the material realm, it does not appear as if there are many options. But if I can support us in tapping into the aspect of ourselves that has never been hurt, harmed, or hindered, then a new paradigm can be made possible. It's not dissimilar from Elie Wiesel when he was in concentration camps and said, you know, yes, the soldier outside of this cell may have the experience of freedom, but I have an access to liberation by way of my mind that he will never know. And so I just want to provide that because I think we're so entrenched in the material realm, in that which we can perceive through our five senses, that we really disempower ourselves in terms of what we can create. There is an aspect to you that goes well beyond this dimension of reality. And I know that sounds like, ooh, but I really know that to be true because I have created things in my life that do not make sense. Yeah. And it's because I aligned with some greater sense of self that I do believe amplified my desires, my intentions, my purpose, my soul's longing or calling, you know, whatever language you want to use.
Do you feel content with, because obviously you've made an enormous shift from where you were to where you are now, but do you still feel longings to continue to evolve and change?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, it's so funny because my husband is like, I mean, he really does walk on the planet as a sort of monk of kinds, you know, I mean, he's a landscape architect and he has a design build firm, but he and I walk on the planet very differently. And I have sort of a lust for life. So I'm sort of always like, and what's next? What could be possible? And when I'm in my conscious state, it doesn't occur as a problem, but when I am unconscious, my longings occur as a problem. And so that's just like always good for me to notice, like, hey, there's nothing wrong here. All is well and beautiful. You desire a new experience of life. So take a breath and how do you want to consciously create this rather than seeing life or the world, those being distinct things, but seeing that which is before you as an opposing force.
Yeah. The theme of the struggle is not real. I really appreciate that one too. And the thing that has been coming to my mind as you've been talking is my struggle with my health that has led me to a big part of what led me to create this. I always saw myself as broken and I needed to be fixed and like never good enough. And the way that manifested was I had some health challenges, like nothing major. And most people probably wouldn't have ever done anything about it. But because of the knowledge that I had about holistic healing, I was like, I saw it as this big self-improvement project. And then when I finally took a step back and was like, you know, I'm okay. you know, and it is what it is. And it shifted. And is my health perfect? No. But when I stopped focusing so much energy on the fact that it wasn't working the way I wanted it to, it felt a lot better.
Totally. Yeah, I totally get it. I mean, I recently went on a yoga retreat, and it was in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just like such a gift. It was amazing. And about 6 days after I returned, these mosquito bites started itching like crazy. And I was like, how is this possible 6 days later? So I went to the urgent care because I'm like, maybe this is bed bugs, and I better, you know, I have 4 kids, like this could get out of control really quickly. Right. And so I went to the urgent care clinic, and the doctor was like, you know, it could be scabies. And I was like, what? Oh my God. Like, what is that? And she was like, well, my recommendation is that you take this lotion, put it all over your body, sleep with it, and then the next morning, wash it off, and that will kill the scabies. And I was like, well, wait a second. We don't even know if I have scabies, and you're asking me to put this like really toxic stuff all over my body and sleep with it, you know? And something in my gut was just like, okay, you're being dramatic. Don't do that, you know? So I didn't do it. I went to the dermatologist a couple days later. He was like, for some people, mosquito bites can last 6 months. So he's like, if you had done her, he was like, if you had done her recommendation and put this lotion on, like you probably would have come to see me, not for scabies, because you do not have scabies, but for a reaction to this highly toxic lotion. And I've been thinking a lot about that, and how, to your point, like when you start to fixate on something, it will overtake your mind. Like I went from having this blissful yoga retreat to having mosquito bites, and now all of a sudden I have scabies, and I'm considering this toxic lotion, and it's like the mind will just be like,
oh yeah, and you gotta like, oh, I gotta fix this, you know?
Exactly. So you know, but again, I just was grateful that something in my intuition was like, no, don't do that. So you know, I think that again, it's so seductive to want to look to our, you know, to outsource our own authority to a doctor.
That was a huge one for me. Huge.
Whatever. And it's like, there's something in you that knows. And the more frequently you listen to your own internal guidance system, the louder it becomes, and the better able you will be to hear it.
Yeah, I've always lived with looking outside of myself for answers, and for somebody else to give me the directions of what I needed to do to fix myself. And this health journey illuminated that brilliantly, because I would go to doctor after doctor, like thick pay, you know, lab tests that they ran, and, you know, things that I tried. I spent thousands on supplements and tests. And even when I went to these people and they would give me recommendations, I'd be like, ugh, but okay, well, since you said this is what
you're the expert,
right? And obviously that did not work out. So there is definitely something to that. And I'm learning to lean into my intuition and my own voice. You know, because I haven't trusted it for most of my life.
Well, and that's by design. That's by design. I mean, we have sort of indoctrinated human beings into not being able to trust themselves, and always outsourcing security, approval, and control to outside authorities. I mean, we can look at many different systems, models, organizations, institutions, and it is such a disservice, and it creates so much suffering. Like, you can trust you. You can trust you. That would be like just a great practice for each of us to just walk in the possibility that I can trust me. There's something in me that knows, and I can listen to that one.
Yeah. It's a beautiful segue into one of the other questions I wanted to ask is, what words of wisdom do you have for moms in specific on this topic?
Oh, I have 4 kids that are 21, 18, 10, and 7. And you you know, our family is not like without its challenges. And I feel like I've done an amazing job with my kids. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I trust my kids to know. Like, I don't see myself as some dominating presence in their life that needs to insert all of my knowing into them. I really relate to them, even as little people, as channels for wisdom, like that something in them knows. My son is a freshman at University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana, and I was talking to him yesterday, and I said, you know, how do you, like, does this feel like a right fit? Because he transferred after his first semester. He started at one school, transferred to U of I, and he just keeps saying, like, I don't know, this whole thing just seems sort of silly. Like, we're paying all this money for this process that I don't find particularly engaging or inspiring or interesting. And I just don't know if that's the best use of resources.
Interesting.
Yeah, and rather than me being like, oh my gosh,
you must stay in college.
Yeah, right. It's like, first of all, like, rest assured that if you react to your kids that way, they will react accordingly.
Right.
You know, so it's like, I just am like, So I think that, you know, I guess my word of wisdom is like, continue to trust yourself. Continue to know that there is wisdom in you that is always leading, guiding, and directing you. You're modeling that, or us modeling that as parents, as moms, is one of the most powerful examples you can provide your children. There are so many seductions that will lead us and our kids, our families, into believing that something out there is going to fix them. A pair of shoes, a trip, a partner, an outfit, a drug, a lotion, like whatever it is. And the more that we can develop the discipline of listening to the wisdom within us, we model that for our kids. And I guess sort of as a sidebar to that, I think it's so easy to forget ourselves. I feel like that's almost like cliche at this point, like to forget ourselves as mothers and place all of our attention on our kids. But as someone who became a mom at 18 and was a single mom for many years, I learned very early and very quickly, like, that my self-care, my well-being, and I don't mean self-care like a pedicure or a massage. I mean, like, real attention to my inner world, to my psychic, spiritual, emotional, mental well-being is absolutely a priority. And from that place, I can be the most, you know, balanced, extraordinary, inspiring, harmonious being I'm here to be.
I would love for you to elaborate on that, only because I think that, you know, a lot of moms are like, well, I got too much going on. I can't deal with self-care. And if you, as a single mother of 2 children, as a teenager, could figure out how to do self-care, nobody has an excuse. So what did that look for you back in the day?
It could look like anything from like turning on music and just dancing my little heart out, you know, just getting my physical body moving. And I don't mean that from an exercise perspective. I mean, like, being in some kind of intentional practice to just get in my body, get in my energy field, to really say, this is sacred time for me. I am closing the door. I am not available for access. Like, barring the house burning down, this is sacred time over here, you know? So like, it could be something like that. You know, I developed a meditation practice very early on, and largely because I just feel like the world is so noisy. And as parents, as moms, we're being like demanded of perpetually, that for me, meditation was just like such a good practice. I think sometimes meditation can be turned into this like very lofty, overwhelming thing, like sitting in the lotus position for an hour. For me, it's like, it could just be 5 minutes of conscious breath, not 5 minutes like numbing out, but like 5 minutes of conscious breathing, trusting that there's something in me that knows that it knows that it knows, knowing that I am infinitely guided and supported, that that there's always a presence, call it God, spirit, life, universe. I mean, it really makes no difference, but invoke the presence of grace, you know? So again, it's like, I wasn't in a position for most of my parenting journey to be like, oh, I need a massage, get me out of here, you know? That wasn't available to me. So I had to create like inexpensive hacks. Actually, I just posted on Instagram yesterday that like one of my best practices is move, breathe, vocalize. So it's like nonverbal body movement and sound. And it literally is just like, ugh. Like if I were to match my feeling state in this now moment with nonverbal sound, because the thing is, once we start invoking words, we get our mind on this hamster wheel of thinking, and we're wanting to sort of give that thing a rest. So nonverbal sound that matches the physical sensation in your body and movement. Like get up, move your body around, get the energy. And I've actually now, like my kids practice that. When my 10-year-old who has like just a lot of big energy starts to get sort of worked up, it's like, okay, let's do some movement, let's do some sound. And it could be like screaming, but it, you know, but it's like, it's not like long screaming. It's just like get the energy moving. And I always say, you know, feeling states, when they are given time and place to be expressed, last no longer than 90 seconds. When you don't give your feelings the opportunity to be felt and moved, they calcify into moods. And that's when we start to get to know people as like, gosh, that person is always such a downer, such a bummer. And it's like, yeah, they probably haven't given themselves, or man, that person is always running so much anxiety. It's like they are a nervous Nelly, likely because they have not developed, and by the way, most of us have not developed any kind of a practice.
Feelings aren't allowed in a lot of spaces.
That's right. Yeah. So it's really like, hey, if you're, I mean, even if you work in a traditional job, start to bring a towel to work, you know, wring it, bite into it and scream. No one will hear you. Like you can there are little things you can do to support yourself. And I just think like that is so essential, because we have a lot of adults walking on the planet right now that are just like a moment away from losing it. And then it comes out sideways at the barista at Starbucks, at the T-Mobile customer service rep. And it's like, these human beings are just like doing their job. We haven't taken responsibility for feeling our feelings, and then it comes out sideways.
Yeah, happens with our children too. That's for sure.
Yep.
I have one final question for you, which you may have already answered, so feel free to just say, yeah, but how do you connect to your true you?
I'm like, as I do that, I'm like, I'm taking a breath. I just cannot emphasize the practice of breathing. It is such a useful practice for me. For me, breathing, dance, like I love music. So just to put on like a powerful piece of music and to allow myself to sing my little heart out or dance my little heart out. I think those are like, you know, the two biggest practices for me: breathing, becoming still, and then paradoxically moving my body.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I love you. Thanks again for being here, Lola. I
Thank
really enjoyed
you.
this conversation.
Thanks for having me. Such a treat.